Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this presentation at IRX. My name's Ann Stanley. I'm the founder and CEO of Anicca Digital. You can see you've got a book on your chair or under your bums. You're very welcome to take them away, and this is what the presentation's about. And we've also got a stand here, so if any of you want to come talk to us afterwards, then we can speak to you as well. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is integrating your digital marketing strategies. I'm mainly focusing on search and social, but I'm also going to bring in the end some of the data that you need to be thinking about as well. So a little bit about myself. I've been in digital marketing for 20 years, and I founded Anicca 16 years ago. And my day job, of course, is being involved with running the business, but mainly doing consultancy around paid media, analytics, and e-commerce marketing. That's my geeky areas. But I'm a big fan of ChatGPT, and I do a lot of training, and we do lots of webinars and things. And there's actually a webinar tomorrow if you're interested on using AI for SEO content creation on scale. So that might be something you might want to have a look at. So Anicca's based in Leicester. There's just under 25 of us, and we've got around 40 clients. We work with quite a few reasonably well-known brands, and on the e-commerce, the people we've worked with are people like Charles Bentley, Dykeman Shoes, What Bike, that's sort of Pets and Friends, those sorts of brands. So first of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of a reason why you need to consider an integrated approach. We often call it omni-channel, but omni-channel means that it's sort of offline, online, selling in shops, selling through distribution, selling through catalogues on the phone, etc. And a lot of people, if they're in the e-commerce space, they only really do e-commerce. So I think an integrated approach describes it better. Now, if you look at this slide, this is our poetic acronym, which we use to describe all the stuff that's on the board over there. And what happens is, in a lot of cases, you get one person or one department that's responsible for one channel, and you often get them working in silos. But our clients don't work like that. They don't think in straight lines. They don't go to just one channel. And even the model of thinking about where they are in the sales funnel is probably a little bit simplistic, because user journeys are really complicated. If any of you have ever looked into the back end of analytics, into the multipath, you'll see just how many times they come to your site, all the different ways they come to your site, and how if they hadn't seen that Facebook ad, they might never have ever found you in the first place. When you have got multi-channel and you're also selling online and offline, what often happens is that the pathway can be quite interrupted, and it can make conversion tracking and attribution very difficult. So we need to take that into consideration. And I think that's particularly important as you get things like iOS, which meant that everybody had to accept the privacy policies of Apple, and most people didn't. And so that meant that the conversion tracking just stopped working in Facebook or in Meta. And then you've got things like the privacy policy with Chrome, which is imminent. And then you've got issues like GA4. So you can see our lives are getting rather complicated. Now, one of the things you can do quite successfully is in most ad platforms, particularly paid social, you can choose objectives that are designed to work at the different stages of the funnel. So you might be running these in parallel. So you might have some awareness campaigns, but you might have some conversion campaigns as well. But one of the techniques that we like to use, and we do a lot, is a sequential campaign. And the idea of this is that you will get people at the beginning of the process when they're first becoming aware of you, and then later on you'll use a different channel or a different type of ads to then re-engage with them. And I just wanted to mention them now because one of the best ways of doing this is video ads. Now, video ad views are really, really cheap. And if you look at Facebook or Meta and YouTube, particularly for consumers, it's only about 1 pence. Even LinkedIn, if you've got a B2B audience, is only about 10 to 50 pence. So if you can use that video view as a way of filtering out the people that are interested in your products, and then you stick them in a new audience, you can then hit them with a second ad or a sequential ad, which might get them over to your website to actually buy. So trying to play around with audiences and remarketing is a very important strategy which I'll go through in a little bit more detail in a minute. Now, there's lots of benefits of having an integrated strategy, and it all really is, you can look at it in two ways. You can look at it from a customer perspective, and then you can look at it from a business perspective. So if you think about the concept of customer relationship management systems, CRMs, which have been around a long time, it was all about having a single view of the customer. So what we're trying to do really is understand what the customer's doing and what they're seeing, and making sure it's consistent across all those channels, and also trying to get to them in as many places as they are. So really what you're trying to do with integrated marketing is to get to your ideal customer wherever they want to engage with you. And it could be where they want to see you, or where they are likely to see your ads or your content, or even where they're likely to want to buy from you. And that's what we mean by an integrated strategy. Now, if you use an integrated strategy, then there's some savings to be had, and there's also some efficiencies. So a good example is if you're doing a lot of email, then you can take your database from your email and you can use it to create custom audiences. So you can use that to create custom audiences in Facebook or Pinterest or TikTok. And then what you can do is you can create lookalike audiences for prospecting. So you can see how email could be used as a source of data for some of these other channels. And I'll go into that with some other examples in a minute. Now, I've decided to use a rather spectacular picture of something that I did with my grandkids when I went to I couldn't say this yesterday, a T-Rex show. This is not a T-Rex, this is a Velociraptor. I can't pronounce any of these dinosaur names. And you see that there's a man wearing this costume, and this costume was 7 foot high. And we all know what happened to the dinosaurs, don't we? They got hit by a meteorite and they were wiped out. Now, what's happening at the moment in marketing is so significant that I think we are likely to come to some sort of cataclysmic event that's going to change everybody's jobs. It's going to change the way that agencies work and the way you work. And that's because of all these changes to privacy and cookies. You've got the platforms automating to such an extent that they don't really want agencies and experts anymore. They just want anybody can set up a campaign. And then you've also got all the AI and machine learning that's happened since ChatGPT. I mean, a lot of it's been around for a while, but since ChatGPT was launched in November, it's exploded. And we're even at the point where SEO might disappear, because they're going to put the answer there for you. So it won't be a search engine anymore. It'll be an answer engine. And guess what's going to be next to it? A load of paid ads. So you need to be thinking about all these things that are going to happen and how you can get a USP. Because if you just do what everybody else is doing, then you're not going to be able to differentiate yourself. So one of the ways that we can really benefit is to integrate, but also to take the learnings from one channel and another. And I'm going to discuss those in some of my strategies. So what I want to do today is I want to avoid you guys turning into dinosaurs. And of course, as an agency, I want us to be here in the next 10 or 15 years, and we don't want to be dinosaurs either. So my first strategy is using something called strategic themes. And the idea of this is to get away from the silos of individual channels and focus on what the outcome or the solution will be to solve your particular problem. So the way we look at that to start with is to try and understand what your specific business objectives are, and then what's the best way of achieving them. Now, as an agency, we're really data driven. We use lots of external tools like SimilarWeb. We use things like BrandWatch, really go into data analytics. And we really want to get under the skin of the business and really understand what's going on so that we can suggest the best strategy. Now, you can see some examples on the screen like branding, new customer acquisition. It could be that you just need to make your current campaigns more efficient. But what you do is you choose 2 or 3 of these, and instead of focusing on, I'm just going to do paid social, you focus on what your output's going to be, and then we look at the tactics that will work with that particular objective. So it's sort of switching it round. And then that means that we can create activity plans, and then we've got all the data and measurement that goes with it, which in a lot of cases is now the really difficult bit. So using the poetic model, I put one together here for new customer acquisition. Obviously, this will depend if it's a B2B or B2C audience. And also it will depend what you're doing in-house, because we could lay out the whole strategy and what we're going to do. And it obviously goes in a lot more detail than this. But actually what might happen is that you might already have done some of it. You might have tried it, it didn't work. Or what we could do is say, well, we do this bit, you do those bits. So that's sort of how it works. So you can work with your agencies and your partners in a more sort of integrated approach. So that's strategy one. Strategy two is to use consistent and effective content across all your channels. Now, obviously, the ideal scenario is to use similar creative, have all your brand guidelines. But what we want to be thinking about is, these are the three main things that I want to mention. We do in our weekly webinars, we've done a couple on creative and personalization. So if you're interested in that, it might be worth catching those webinars as well. So the first is audience first content, then an integrated content channel, and then the concept of shattering, which you may or may have not heard of before. So the first is quite an old concept, which we call segmentation. I've been in marketing for a long time, over 20 years, and I did all my offline marketing before I even got into digital marketing. And we would talk about positioning and segmentation. And what we're really trying to say is we need to create content that works for specific channels. So if you're creating your targeting, then make sure that that content is of interest to that particular group. My second is the benefits of how you can integrate your content and your marketing across multiple owned and earned channels. And I'm specifically thinking of SEO, social and PR. Now, most of you will be aware that digital PR has grown massively in the last few years, because if you get links from a press or media site, they usually got very good domain authority, and that will benefit you with your SEO strategy. Also, if you can create content that's on your website and then you can break it up and repost it on social media, then you're getting the dual benefit of the SEO of your content, but then also you're using the distribution of PR or social to actually get it out there and distribute it. The other thing that I think you need to be thinking of is what's actually happening and where your users are. So if you look at the last few years, particularly since the cost of living crisis and the war started, a lot of e-commerce websites have seen very, very big drops in demand and search volume. Now, of course, that could be because there is a genuine drop in demand. But we also know that when people go to search engines, a lot of the time, they don't actually click on any of the links. They often find the result is there for them. And this is going to be even more so as Bing brings in ChatGPT and Google brings in Bard. The answer will be there. So, for example, if you were searching for a hotel, all the information would be there. If you were searching for the weather, the information would be there. And over 50% of the people on a desktop will not click on anything. And when you get to mobile, it's like 75%. So this means that if you are number one for something, a year ago, the search volume was, say, 10,000 a month. This year, it might have gone down by 10%. Your click-through rate's gone down. You could have had a significant drop in traffic. Now, we need to add another factor in there. A lot of people aren't using Google and Bing anymore. They're going to TikTok, they're going to Pinterest, they're going to these other social platforms which work as search engines, particularly for certain type of products and for particular age group or personas. So you might find, particularly if you're in sort of cosmetics or fashion, that people aren't actually searching in Google anymore. They're going elsewhere. They might be going in Amazon, of course, but they could be in TikTok. And what you find is that if you don't do anything in those platforms, your brand starts to disappear. But you can reverse it round, because if you can get people talking about your brand in the social platforms, and then you use PR to say that they're talking about your brand in social platforms, and then that content gets shown in the top of Google in the news stories, what you end up doing is you end up getting a buzz going on, and actually what you can do is generate demand and get more people to come to your website and actually buy, because you've got higher SEO positions, you've got more visibility. The other thing we need to be careful of is that we're getting so much fragmentation in media that actually it might get to a point where in TikTok they do the search and they go to your TikTok shop and actually buy in TikTok and they never get to your website. So one of the things we've got to start be thinking about is I'm not just selling on my e-commerce store anymore, I'm actually selling in all these other places. And let's see if we can get them to work together and feed together and create custom audiences and cross-fertilize. The final strategy on content is what we call shattering content. Now you see here I've created this book, and this literally came off the printer on Tuesday, and we were carrying the boxes to the show. But when we get back, we've already created a landing page for the electronic version. There's going to be an email campaign. There's going to be a blog. We're going to be doing some webinars. We'll be taking it to events. We'll be doing some paid social. Hopefully it'll come up in SEO. So you can see that there'll be a whole strategy around that one piece of content. And this is what we mean by shattering content, because we'll take certain elements out of this, some of which I put in this presentation today, and we'll break it up and use it. There could be a video, there could be an infographic. And then what we do is with all those different elements of content, we'll then use and distribute it for a whole load of channels. The philosophy is really you write one really good piece of content and you use it in multiple places rather than creating lots of small pieces of content with less value, because this way people are going to want to have this. Now this will be gated content on the website, and when we did this before, mainly using Meta, we got something like 30 to 40% people signed up for this, our previous one, which was called the A10 marketing framework, which you can still get on the site. And the cost per download was cheaper than the cost per click in Google. So you can see that if you can use assets like this and reuse them, so product guides would be a really good example, and then you can shatter them and use them in lots of different places, you might find that that's a good strategy of getting people to your site. And then once they've been to your site, you can remarket to them and then give them examples or get them to sign up to your email list. So it all integrates together. My third strategy is a little bit more technical, and it's about using the insights that you get from search, particularly in paid search, and then using it in SEO or even in places like Marketplace, Amazon ads, etc. And some of the other things where you basically learn something in one channel and then you apply it to another. So there's a couple of things I want to tell you here. First of all, automation is driving what we call key phrase redundancy. Now, most of you will probably be using Google Ads, and you may or may not be aware of just how much of the traffic has moved away from the standard text ads, where you have to choose key phrases, to types of campaigns where there's no key phrases involved, and it's actually getting the content from either your website or the feed. A good example is dynamic search ads or DSAs, and to me that's just purely a paid SEO. If you've got the content on your website, we'll pay and get it shown. Whereas if you look at shopping ads and Performance Max, that's taking the content on your website, sticking it in a feed, and then that gets used in through Merchant Center and then Google Ads to create your ads. So as Google automates things and we get automated bidding, what happens is eventually you could get to the point where key phrases, you don't need to enter them anymore, and it actually be your website that determines whether you get seen or not. So actually your content on your website becomes the driver for your paid search activities. Okay. Now as e-commerce, we sort of know that already, because if we've got really crap titles and descriptions on our product pages, we don't get found for shopping. So we sort of instinctively know this in the e-commerce world, but I think it's going to be even more profound going forward. So this means that we can use the search term data you can get in PPC, obviously to optimize those campaigns, but you can also use it for other channels such as SEO and Amazon ads, because they all rely on key phrases. But the other thing is there's certain other parts of PPC insights which we can also use, and I'm going to go through each of those. So this slide just explains in a little bit more detail what I was talking about with regards to keyword redundancy, and how these two really important types of campaigns, DSAs, manual shopping and Performance Max are all driven from content from your website. Now, most of you will realize that you can supplement the content and you can use rules and things in Merchant Center to add extra content or manipulate the titles or add extra information. So, for example, you can use it to create labels based on profit and things like that. But even though you don't use key phrases, particularly with DSAs and standard shopping, you will get the search term data. So you can often use that and then decide whether you want to create new text campaigns or how you want to manipulate that in the future. So with this dependency on the website as a way of getting content, I actually think that we need to be thinking about our PPC and SEO as a twin, where we actually think, well, hold on, if we do one, we can do the other at the same time. So the ideal scenario is to use the key phrases that we know that converted over in paid, and we know we get sales from them, and then optimize the relevant landing pages so that we get the benefit of the SEO. And then we also, when we use these dynamic types of shopping ads and DSAs, you get the benefit in the PPC as well. So instead of focusing on what's going on actually within the AdWords account, Google Ads, you can tell how long I've been in the industry if I'm slipping into Google Ads, or AdWords rather. If you think about trying to fix that landing page, then you're going to get the dual benefit, if that makes sense. And this is sort of shown in this slide here, because what we can do is we can feed the data through these different routes and actually enhance what's happening. But you can also use that same search term data in shopping ads and Amazon ads and Pinterest, etc. as well. And I've just shown that in here. So if you look at something like Amazon ads, you've got automatic and manual. Well, if you're going to have to select key phrases, why don't you use the key phrases that you know already works? And then you can insert those in as well. You can do the same with Pinterest. Of course, when you're doing PPC, key phrases isn't the only thing. We're playing around, particularly with search ads, we're playing around with the text of the description, the title, etc. And we do a lot of testing. So why can't we work out what of those ads, titles and descriptions have got the best CTR, click-through rate, conversion rate, and then use that data to help enhance our SEO descriptions. So again, you're learning in paid where you can test really quickly, and then when you learn what works, you can then apply it over in SEO. Now you do have to be a bit careful because the title tag in SEO on an individual page will influence your SEO, so you're better off playing with the description, but because that's less important. But the thing is that if you know what works in one platform, apply it in the other. And the same thing with landing pages, particularly we've had a lot of people with startups here over the last 2 days, and they won't have very much track history. So they won't have loads of site traffic going to their sites. So if we start to spend money on PPC, we can use that to determine if the site is working and how to improve it. Because if you can improve the conversion rate, and then that will help the site irrespective of how the traffic came to it. So just to summarize my beliefs on this particular approach is that I really think that SEO and PPC teams will merge and will become search teams going forward, because we're both trying to achieve the same thing. We're both trying to get real estate in the search engines, and we sometimes have to protect the brand with paid search. But as the search engines evolve, we're going to have to work together, because it's going to get tough out there, particularly when Google introduces BARD and reduces the amount of space there is for organic traffic. Okay. My next technique relates to remarketing and sequential campaigns, which we do a lot of. And I won't bore you with a lot of detail on remarketing, because most of you would have probably seen a presentation on it before, but I want to sort of show you more of the practical aspects of it. So the concept of remarketing, which is incredibly effective, is to re-engage with people that you've already had some contact with before. So most people, I've got a diagram in a minute, but most people will be thinking about somebody that's visited my website. We all go to John Lewis, we all look at a pair of trousers or jeans, and then as soon as we get off John Lewis because we didn't buy, we'll be hit with John Lewis ads of that pair of jeans in Facebook. When we go to Gumtree, when we go and search again, John Lewis will come up higher because of remarketing for search ads. So everywhere we go, we'll be stalked around the internet with a John Lewis ad based on the fact that we went to the website. So you've got various different types of remarketing that you can do, but I want to go into some of the detail of some of the strategies that you can use it for. So this is just a quick diagram if you're not familiar of how remarketing works, but the key that most people don't think of is it doesn't matter how you get them to this site in the first place. It could be from an ad on the tube, a radio ad with a vanity page URL. It could be your SEO traffic. It could be a blog. It could be paid social, or it could be from the same platform. So as soon as they get to your site, they're cookied. And then at that point, depending on what ad platforms you're working with, each of those will have its own cookie. And then you can go over to Facebook or Criteo or I can't think of any of the display ads that work on remarketing, but you get my idea. It doesn't matter as long as you've got an ad platform that works with remarketing, it's going to have cookied that person when it arrives, and then you can then get those follow-up ads. Now, I think sequential campaigns is a really interesting part of what we're doing. Part of it's remarketing, but it's not always, because depending on what platform you're using, they do offer some extra functionality. So the first one I want to talk to you about is often very popular in Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, where the same audience sees two ads, but the messaging is very different. So the first ad they'll see could be an awareness, a video consideration ad, a carousel of products or whatever. And then the second ad will be an offer to get them to go and buy it. So that's a sequential ad. Everybody sees it the same. The second one is a bit more like the video one that I was talking about, where they see a video or they see a carousel or a collection ad or something. And then what happens is the people that engaged in that ad would then be put into an engaged audience. And then they will get a second ad if they watch, say, 50% of the video. And that second ad would be a conversion ad. Now, a good example of this is YouTube. Because if you get them to watch an ad in YouTube, you can link your YouTube account with your Google Ads account. And so the second ad will come from your Google Ads account, and that could be a conversion ad. So you can see that you can link YouTube as well, whereas most people do it within the same platform. And then the third one is what we call cross-channel remarketing. And this is where you might have, over in Facebook, you might have a target people that are interested in interior design, grand designs, garden furniture, etc. And you give them a link to go across to your website to download a garden furniture guide. So you've got them over to your website now. And then when that group of people come to search, only them get to see the ad. Okay. So these are some of the tactics that you need to be aware of. And in Google, you need to understand there's two types. There's the first type where basically we've got an existing campaign. So it might be a Performance Max campaign for garden, or a standard shopping campaign for garden furniture. And then you layer all your audiences over the top, and you notice that people that came in from Pinterest are particularly buying really well. So you'll up the bid, and then you could do remarketing like that. Or in my example before, what I might do is I might only show, in the targeting option, I might only show the ad to the people that actually downloaded or came to that page. So you've got two different types. One is just quite narrow, whereas the observation one, you just lay it over the top. It doesn't influence the targeting, but you can use it to change the bid. Another really powerful method is the custom audiences, which I mentioned with your Klaviyo. And that's where you can build lists of different types. So this could be a Klaviyo list or customer list that you can use to create a custom audience. Or it could be somebody that's engaged with the video or an organic post, etc. And the good thing about these custom audiences, once you've got them, you can then create lookalike audiences, which you can then use for prospecting. But you can also use them as negative audiences because you don't want to waste your money on people that have already bought from you before. And then this is just a quick slide explaining how lookalikes work. So I've got some good tips for Meta, and the most important thing is that you try and get the Meta pixel or the cookie on your website using something like Google Tag Manager, and so that means you can create some actions and things. You want to ideally create custom audiences, and the thing with Meta is the custom audiences can be relatively small, sort of 30, 50 upwards. So even if you've got a very targeted list of converters and you're quite small, you can still get a match. You probably need about 4 to 1. So if you've got 400 people, you might end up with 100. But you can start small. And the other thing about it is that because Facebook and Meta have got all their own data, it's often good to remarket to people that has engaged within the platform. Whereas if you really want to start getting information of your converters that happen on your website, because of the iOS blockages, we're going to need another method, which I'll talk about in a second. Some of the strategies that work really well for e-commerce is things like video views on YouTube, then remarketing in Google. Things like doing something in Facebook, getting your ideal audience, and then bringing them over to your site, and then do an RLSA for shopping. That might be something like garden furniture. If you sell really expensive garden furniture, you don't want to bid on just general garden furniture terms. Cart abandonments, and then you might send them to your Amazon shop, and then use of customer audiences, which you can use for things like existing customers or even retention or reminders. So, if you've got something that people buy every time or a subscription model, you might want to use it for reminders as well. So one of the concepts I really like is what we call honeypots, and the garden furniture one's a good example of this. And this is where you use a channel, and it doesn't matter, again, how they find it. It could be an advert from an email, or it could be a Facebook campaign. But what you do is you get them over to your site using a really cheap source of traffic. It could even be an ad on the radio, for example. Once they come to your site and they've actually gone to that page and downloaded that resource, you can then remarket to them in all the other channels. So all it is getting them to your site and then only targeting those people that are warm and have engaged with you before. And these are just some examples of the sorts of things you can target. You can target your converters, returning visitors. You can also target based on lifetime value rather than just them buying one thing or when they bought. Did they buy at Valentine's last year? Well, let's target them again this year, that sort of thing. And then the other thing you can do is target them based on the content of your site. So are they going to certain pages? Are they doing certain things? Are they watching certain things? Are they tracking? And then the other thing that I think a lot of you might be interested in is the concept of dynamic remarketing, which is based on that John Lewis idea. I go and look at a pair of jeans, and then I see those jeans everywhere. Now, a lot of product remarketing at the moment is being incorporated into Performance Max. You can still create separate campaigns. And then this is the main type of Facebook advertising that e-commerce sites use, which is the catalog ads. The problem with catalog ads in Facebook is the conversions aren't being tracked. So we need to start introducing the concept of the conversion API and getting the conversions from your website and your server and injecting them into Facebook to really make this work. Because if Facebook can't see your conversions, it won't know who to target with, because it works on the basis of trying to get more. But we've got various different strategies around dynamic remarketing in both Google and across other platforms as well. So you can definitely look at Bing for remarketing. And then you've got the catalog ads and also the new Advantage Plus ads as well. But I do recommend, if you're going to do any of this tracking, that you use Google Tag Manager, because we do need to mark up the page. Because if I go to a page, the ad platform needs to know that I've actually looked at that specific product. So it's always linked with the catalogue. Okay, I'm nearly run out of time, which is, I was too short yesterday and I'm too long today. I just wanted to mention a few things that you might not be wearing on the data side. So first of all is enhanced conversion tracking. This is a Google feature where you bring the data for the people that have bought from you, you hash that data and you send it through to Google. And then that information through the Google Ads platform or through the API, that gives them more details. Then we've got the concept of server-side tracking. Now, server-side tracking is very important, particularly if you want to start bringing in the conversion data. And as the cookies start to get blocked, this is going to become the default. So GA4 is going in that direction. But if you haven't already looked at server-side tracking, you need to, and you can come and talk to us later about it. But the main advantage is it's faster. And effectively, there are a lot of plugins that allow you to do this already, and a lot of products that you can do this. And this was the award that we won for Books to Door, where we brought in the conversion data and saw over a 200% increase in conversions and 45% increase in revenue overall for Books to Door. And we won 4 awards at the UK Paid Awards. And then the final thing I wanted to mention to you is profit-based bidding. When we are bidding on things like Performance Max and shopping ads, what we're mainly doing is worrying about the return on ad spend, the revenue divided by the ad spend. But if you've got 2 products at £100 and one's £20 worth of margin and one's £50 worth of margin, one could be losing you money and one could be making you money. So if you've got products with lots of different ranges, we need to start structuring our campaigns and changing our bidding in order to accommodate that different profit. So we start talking about POS instead of ROS. And this is the stuff that I think we will all be moving to as we start to take more into consideration the amount of money that you make rather than the revenue that you make. And I won't go through all the key takeaways here because you get the slides and the video later. But my real take-home message is there's so much cataclysmic, that's not easy to say, cataclysmic stuff happening with marketing at the moment, with AI automation, that if you really want to stay ahead and not be a dinosaur, you need to take a more integrated approach. Thank you. If any of you are interested in working with us, you can come and see us. We've got a load of audits that we do, quite a few of them are free. We do our weekly webinars, and this is some of the services that we're doing for e-commerce. So thank you very much. Is there any questions?